The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
But they turned our nation's capital into a sanctuary jurisdiction. That's the other thing. We have to get rid of sanctuary cities as quickly as possible. We're going to do it, too. We have to. Because it's sanctuary for criminals. Releasing illegal alien gang members onto the streets in 2022, nearly 70% of criminals arrested in Washington went unprosecuted. That's not going to happen with the group we have standing aside and standing behind me. Our public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left city council adopted no cash bail. By the way, every place in the country where you have no cash bail is a disaster. That's what started the problem in New York, and they don't change it. They don't want to change it. That's what started it in Chicago. I mean, bad politicians started it, bad leadership started it, but that was the one thing that's central, no cash bail. Somebody murders somebody and they're out on no cash bail before the day is out. We're going to end that in Chicago. We're going to change the statute. I spoke with Pam and Todd and everybody. We're going to change the statute, and I'm going to have to get the Republicans to vote because the Democrats are weak on crime, totally weak on crime. They don't know why. They want to stop because they get mugged too. But we're going to change no cash bail. We're going to change the statute and get rid of some of the other things. And we'll count on the Republicans in Congress and Senate to vote. We have the majority, so we'll vote. We don't have a big majority, but we've gotten everything, including the great, big, beautiful bill.
Yes, my friends, what a day. What a day. It is the beginning of another. You can just tell. It's going to be one of those weeks. The news nonstop. Welcome to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour, the Monday edition. Here we are again. Kick off a brand new business week. The week, of course, started yesterday. And Donald Trump. Headlines again this time. Well, let's just look at the headlines from Politico. What Trump and Trump can't do in his bid to take over law enforcement in D.C. Live updates. Trump to seize control of the D.C. police, activate National Guard, Dems rail against moves. I'm trying to hold my temper. MSNBC contributor on verge of melting down over Trump's D.C. crime crackdown. The Daily Bo Snerdley. That comes from the Daily BS. That's a different story. Oops, excuse me. Let me put that wrong stack. I'll get to that one in a minute. Bureau calls out D.C. laws letting young punks off the hook for violent crimes. And then the story that I started to do was in the wrong stack. Total dud. CNN's Harry Enton reports Epstein didn't hurt Trump one bit. A nothing burger, according to data. Well, my friends, yes, by the way, the redistricting fight is still going on. That may be one of the most consequential political stories in not just this decade, in many decades. Because this is going to impact the number of congressional seats. If the right thing is done here, if Donald Trump, if the Republican Party is able to have the political will to stand for doing what's right and follow this through, Democrats, as we know it, may be a failed political party for years because they have been in power based on lawlessness, the lawlessness of illegal immigration, which they did on purpose. This was a purposeful move from the Democrats. And nothing about it, my friends, nothing about it has been right. Okay, let us begin. Where do we begin? Let's go back to this announcement today in Washington, D.C. The announcement that would be cut one, Carlos. And forgive me if some of the stuff was included in the cuts that you've already heard, but let's listen. We've got long sound bites today, folks, and I didn't want to shorten them because I think what's being said is pretty important. Let's go with cut one. Carlos, just take it away. Donald Trump announcing.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being the worst places on earth. Much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years. Can't be worse. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. Just like we did on our southern border. Nobody comes through our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had zero. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work, it's a very liberal group of people, actually, and they actually said zero for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, when you take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is, okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that? I don't think so. And I think the people in this room, if you wrote correctly, you'd see, look at the kind of numbers we have. D.C., 41 per 100,000, number one that we can find anywhere in the world. Other cities are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that. Is that where you want to live? The reporters of the world?
Well, some of the reporters actually, in fact, there have been more than one reporter that talked about the crime that they faced. But you have other journalists, two in particular come to mind. Dana Bash is one, and there was some guy on PMS NBC that almost echoed word for word what Dana Bash said. And let's cut 10, Carlos. Let's quickly visit what the response is from some of the journalists that have listened to all of this. Go ahead.
I should note that the most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th. And it was an attack on the United States Capitol by a lot of people who were doing it in the name of Donald Trump. And it included, the people who were hurt included members of law enforcement.
Now, to Dana Bash, the most violent day in the entire history of Washington, D.C. was what? It was January 7th. And that sentiment has been echoed. Now, you tell that to the hundreds of people that are mugged, beaten, the ones that have been murdered in D.C., you tell them that the most violent day ever was January 6th. There was one person killed on January 6th. Her name was Ashley Babbitt. She wasn't killed by any of the protesters. Yet, to these liberals, the most violent day ever in Washington, D.C., ever, was January 6th. And of course, that's absolute nonsense. That's a political point that they wanted to make and that they are making so that they can avoid what has taken place in D.C., and not just D.C., every other major American city is suffering from this plague of violence. You've seen it. You see it all over if you're on social media. The smash and grabs. You've seen these gangs that are using social media to just show up and strip businesses bare or loot them at will. You have seen the violence that goes on. There are people who are afraid, and you will hear from some of those residents in these major cities, but they don't care. To Dana Bash, the lives of all these people who live in D.C., no, they're not affected by the most violent thing we've ever seen is by Trump and his Republicans, January 6th. And what was the response from that? They built a wall of gates around the Capitol to protect the political class. But we're not talking about, most people are not talking about the political class when they're talking about violence and fear of violence. They're talking about real crime. But the response from the left, from some quarters in journalism, actually betrays who these people are and what they think. The people that actually live with violence every day. They don't come to Dana Bash's mind. They're not in her world set. They're not in her mindset. They're meaningless people. They count for nothing. They're just the little people. But the people that she is upset, the most violent thing I've ever seen was January 6th. And it wasn't even violent, except one person got killed. Again, not from the protesters. These people, I'm telling you, and when you hear some of the others, they thought that they would trap D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser into agreeing that this is all the racist. And you know, that's the first thing out of their mouths for everything. Racist, 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 racist. But not everybody's buying this party line. And there was a protest today. I couldn't even almost get through listening to one of these protesters who can barely, and I'm ashamed to say I shouldn't even be pointing it out. You'll hear it for yourself. To me, it's a testament on what public education has wrought in America, but we have to take a break first. So let us do that. And we will get back with it here on the fastest hour in American media, Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. Don't go away.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
How do you know that? Because that's what I do. I make deals. James Golden, Snerdley. Okay, very quickly, I want to get to something. Now, you know the political class, the reporting class is upset. There's a guy by the name of Eddie Glaude. He's a contributor, black guy, very handsome, distinguished-looking guy that is a contributor on PMSNBC, and he was asked about this Trump takeover. That is cut 8, and this is what he had to say.
Chris, to be honest with you, I'm trying to hold my temper. I think that's an ongoing argument that he's having in his head with Black Lives Matter. There's an ongoing argument that he's having with the questions around criminal justice reform and police reform. It's interesting that he really doesn't really care about what's actually happening in D.C. on a certain level, because he's not trying to get at the underlying root causes. He's not looking at examples of how to address rising crime rates, that doesn't require a form of policing that leads to increased incarcerality and the like. Let's look at what's going on in Baltimore. Let's look at what's happening actually in places like Baltimore and Chicago, right? So part of what we have to do is to understand. And Oakland. We have to understand this, Chris, within the context of Donald Trump's racial politics and within the context of his effort to get Epstein off the front pages. I understand David's point. But when we try to treat this as a rational response, then we lose sight of the actual politics that's being played here. And he's actually trying to give his base red meat to get them off of the Epstein story, and it's on the backs of citizens in Washington, D.C. He's going to undermine the democratic process in the district. And so I understand what David is trying to say, but we need to be clear about what Donald Trump is doing.
What is the democratic process in Washington, D.C.? To let the citizens die from violent criminals, to let the citizens be attacked from violent predators, to make sure that the kids growing up in D.C. don't have an education. All of that. And yet, who's the culprit for everything wrong, according to these people? Donald Trump. Not their own failed apologies, of which they are just mere apologists for.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, a quick word from the governor of the Golden State of California, Gavin Newsom.
Hey, President Trump, it's time to stand down. It's time to make another phone call to Greg Abbott. This time, instead of calling him and telling him you're, quote unquote, entitled to 5 congressional seats, it's time to tell him to stand down. It's time to recognize that democracy is at risk. It's time to, dare I say, do the right thing. Actually see how that feels for you, doing the right thing. If you don't, California will neutralize anything you do in the state of Texas. California will continue to punch above its weight. We believe in democracy. We believe in the enduring values of our founding fathers. 249 years. We're not going to sit back passively. We're not going to sit back and watch you light democracy on fire. We will fight fire with fire.
And Gavin Newsom is incompetent. He's got a good line of bull, but that's about it. He's incompetent.
Oh my gosh. James Golden and Snerdley. Okay, I mentioned that there was a rally. Yes, we're going to get to this the redistricting. If we don't have time for it today, we will certainly get to it this week. There's a lot going on. J.D. Vance had a great interview with Maria Bartiromo on it, and we want to play some of that for you if we can. But I want you to hear some of the protests that's happening from this move of Donald Trump making Washington, D.C. a safer place to live. This is a long soundbite. We'll stay with as much of it as we can. This is from they had a big rally. Big rally. Yes, big rally today, D.C. You should see them. They all have the dress. Somebody printed up T-shirts. They're calling it Free D.C., as if they don't want to free the criminals from D.C. They don't want to free the citizens from having to deal with criminals, but they want to supposedly free. Yes, Princess Di has weighed in. Hallelujah. She's weighing in again. Did Newsom really just reference fire? And that's about, yes, he did. I'm so glad you said that, Princess Di, because Donald Trump actually talked about the fire and Gavin Newsom, so we'll have to get to that. But as I was saying, so you see this D.C. crowd, there's a guy standing out there in his yellow NAACP shirt. It said NAA. Yes, LCP. What, Carlos, history, what does NAACP stand for? Come on. TikTok,
no, I don't know.
TikTok.
I'm going to say I don't know, so don't get more embarrassed.
You don't know. TJ, what does NAACP stand for?
National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Colored people? Colored people? Who the hell are colored people, boy? What you saying colored people for, boy? What wrong with you, boy? Carlos, you ever heard of some colored peoples? Who's colored out there? You colored? Carlos, are you colored? I'm
Last
just
time
asking.
I checked on the mirror, I was.
You colored? What colored are you? You colored?
Brown to blackish.
If somebody call you colored, you got a problem with that or you don't. And they say, hey, you, colored boy, come on over here, colored boy. You got a problem with that? No coloreds. No coloreds allowed here. You got a problem with somebody saying that? No coloreds. Anyway, it was a different age. Now they're people of color. But that's not what the NAACP stands for. They don't stand for the National Association of People of Color. They stand for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Peoples, not peoples of color. Because it would be the NAA... PC what? PC? POC, People of Colored. The NAAPOC, the NAPOC. But it ain't NAPOC, it's NAA, and then it was renamed the NAALCP. Do you know what that stands for? Oh, the National Association for the Advancement of Liberal Colored People. You see? A very famous broadcaster renamed it that. Very, very, very famous. Anyway, let's get to, yes, Gavin Newsom really did just reference fire in his remarks. Fire. Yeah, baby. Okay, anyway. The rally. So you had all these people out there at the rally. One guy with his NAALCP shirt, yellow shirt, standing behind the speaker. And boy, were they ticked off at Donald Trump. They so ticked off by him trying to stop crime in Washington, D.C., by him putting their foot down against crime and homelessness in D.C. It's terrible thing that he's doing. And just listen to the speaker, this highly educated woman that is the head of the rally and spokesperson for the rally to free Washington, D.C. from Donald Trump.
Great. The president has been trying to provoke violence here, right here, in the black communities and in the brown communities, having ICE kidnap our neighbors, having the black community be harassed and profiled and want a response. We say, hell no, we won't go.
Go where?
We won't go.
Go where? Where you going?
When we say we won't go, that means we're not going to those mass incarceration, into their prisons and enslavement. We won't go into their ICE, what do you call his beautiful centers that he got.
Could you hold it right there? Just hold it right there. Hold it right there. Okay. Hell no, we won't go. Where you going? We're not going to their incarceration and to their enslavements. We're not going to their enslavements? Where do you go to... I'm sorry, I must be missing something. Where do you go for enslavement besides the Democrat Party? Where do you go? And then we're not going into... What else did she say? Can you start that over again so I can track that line one more time, please? Just play it again.
Great. The president has been trying to provoke violence here, right here, in the black communities and in the brown communities, having ICE kidnap our neighbors, having the black community be harassed and profiled and want a response. We say, hell no, we won't go.
Hell no, we won't go. Hell no, we won't go. Okay, got that.
When we say we won't go, that means we're not going to those mass incarceration, into their prisons and enslavement. We won't go into their ICE, what do you call his beautiful centers that he got. We won't go to where alligators live. Hell no,
what?
We won't go.
Okay, stop right there. I got it now. I was trying to struggle and understand. So we're not going to those mass, what do you call them again? Those mass beautiful places. And we're not going where the alligators live. Somebody please call Ron DeSantis and tell them that there's a group of people in D.C. that are not going to Florida because alligators live there. Please. And they're mad at Donald Trump. And they're not, but don't worry, they're not coming to Florida because they're not going to, hell no, they're not going where the alligators live. And they're not going to the mass in, what do you call it? What do you call it? The beautiful big, where alligators live. They're not going there. Okay, now let's continue with the mass protest person. Hell no, we won't go.
We won't go. Today we gather to speak plainly about policy path that sounds strong, but in truth, it weakens the very safety we seek.
What?
We believe there is a better way to protect us all. One that respects rights to build trust and keep our communities truly safe, and that is fascism-free. Fear is not a roadmap for safety. It's a burial. It fails hardest on the black communities that already we bear a disproportionate share of surveillance, stops, and forces.
Surveillance? What? Stop. Hold on. I'm trying to follow this so I can understand what protesting. So I lost it. But there's something about surveillance. And they ain't going, what? I'm getting lost here, folks. I'm sorry, I just can't keep up with it all. Carlos, keep going. Maybe we can just pick up the thread and find out what this woman talking about, please.
Clear, we've been here before. This is a long history. Well before today, the black communities bear the brunt of aggressive policing. Data and reports from many credible organizations show patterns. Black people are more likely to be stopped, searched, questioned, arrested, and harmed in encounters with the law. When we add the presence of federal agents or the National Guard to daily life in these neighborhoods, the burden can multiply. Not by making harm more rare, but making it more visible and more likely to escalate. So be clear, this has been going on. But as you bring more policemen, it's going to escalate. Black Washingtonians have long recognized...
Hold on. This has been going on, but if you bring more policemen, it's going to escalate. I think we understand that point. If you bring more policemen, it's going to escalate. But not the crime, but the police are the criminals, I guess. And so, anyway, let's continue and try to find out so that we can be sympathetic to those that are protesting, people trying to take care of the criminals in Washington, D.C. Go ahead.
Community violence cannot be solved through state violence, and have asked for meaningful investments and solutions that are proven to work. Racist over-policing goes beyond D.C., as the roots of American policing in many regions, like enslaved patrol. Police have been enslaving and murdering black people with freedom for punishment for centuries. I stand in front of you today with a signal to the residents of D.C. and the country that we will not be idle as oppressive structures try to harm our communities and take power.
Hold it. We got to the nut now. I will not be idle. I ain't gonna be idle. While oppressive powers do something with our community. Do we all understand now what's going on here? Just let her finish, Carlos, please.
And the liberation of all people will not stop no matter our oppression, intimidation, manipulation tactics. We have the right to demand respect, to protect ourselves, and protect each other.
If y'all been protecting each other, there wouldn't be no need for this, because the criminals wouldn't be out there.
And as the Purge Water Streams, I want to name white people civil rights.
Enough. Anyway, there are people, some people in the hood are a little upset with Donald Trump today, for goodness sakes, trying to get rid of the criminal element. And they're worried about being enslaved in his thing where the alligators live, and we have to take a break, folks. But I hope that you will please listen to the voices that are the pro-criminal voices among us, because there are many. We'll be back. Don't go away. Bo Snerdley, Rush Hour, the fastest hour in American media, continues.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
1949 on this day. Hey, with us on the telephone, Tom Bond is here. We call Tom Bond. Tom Bond, for many of you that don't know, you've heard him on a podcast with us before, but Tom Bond is also married to the Countess of Conspiracy, who has provided us with, and I find myself having to say every once in a while that the Countess of Conspiracy was right about something that I didn't think at the time was plausible. Anyway, good afternoon, Mr. Bond. He's cousin of James Bond, by the way. You have never seen a man in your life that is so incredibly, how shall we say, without sounding like, something I don't want to sound like. Polished. That's a good word, TJ. Polished. In a tuxedo. He's an amazing guy. Welcome, Tom Bond. How are you?
James, very good. So good to be with you. And you look really good in a tuxedo, too. So you were
nowhere close to you, my friend. Nowhere close to you. Listen, I got to ask you quickly. I also know you delve into the world of finance. I'm not asking for specific advice. I want to know from you if you think this is a big deal. The announcement last week that Donald Trump was opening up people's 401k to outside investments, to private investments, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think the impact of that's going to be?
I mean, it's going to expand markets significantly. I think a lot of what's happening is really a democratization of investing. Wealthy people, often called accredited investors, you have to have a certain net worth and a certain annual income, have access to investments that the average guy does not. And I think the Trump administration is probably going to a place where the market was going to get there, or other administrations would have gotten there at some point. But Trump is much better at breaking down regulatory rules and constraints. And so people, for example, will be able to invest in private companies, funds that are put together that then go out and invest in private companies. For example, SpaceX is not something that anyone can just go to the New York Stock Exchange and buy stock in, but you could possibly have a private equity fund have an investment in SpaceX, Elon Musk's other business, and get access to that in your 401k. So, but it's not without risk. These are typically riskier investments, and also usually more expensive. The fees will be higher with them. So it's not a slam dunk for anyone to make that decision. But I think overall it's probably a good thing.
That's amazing. We have to talk more about that. The real reason I called was to wish you happy birthday, Mr. Bond.
Well, I appreciate that too. Thank you very much.
That's Tom Bond, ladies and gentlemen. We do have to continue this discussion. Folks, he's brilliant. We got to go. May God bless, protect each and every single one of you, your families, your loved ones. God willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, my friends, I bid you adieu. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. You can hear Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour weekdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?